um,
What?
work the pencils down to a nub.
Well, we.
It is 5:33 p.m. and I call this meeting to order. Let's go ahead and do a roll call. This is Brian, GC Vice President.
This is Erin, Chair. I'm President.
Secretary.
And Monique, are you there?
This is Monique. I'm currently driving general member.
Thank you very much. We have a quorum. Item number 3, Governing Council Administrative Discussion and Action Items. Item 3.1, a recommendation to approve the agenda for the December 12th, 2024 regular meeting. If you haven't done so already, if you could scan the agenda, let us know if you have any comments, and then I would like to entertain a motion.
This is Erin. I make a motion we approve the agenda for today, December 12th, 2024.
Is there a second?
This is Rainey. I second.
Thank you. Roll call vote. This is Brian. I approve.
This is Erin. I approve.
This is Rainey. I.
This is Monique, and I approve.
Thank you. Motion passes. Item 3.2, a recommendation to approve the minutes from the November 26th, 2024 regular meeting. Again, if you haven't had a chance, please go ahead and review the minutes. And when someone is ready, I will entertain a motion.
This is Erin. I'll make a motion to approve the minutes for the November meeting.
Rainey. I second.
Roll call vote. This is Brian. I approve.
This is Erin. I abstain.
Rainey. I approve.
Monique, and I approve.
Thank you very much. Motion passes. Item number 4, public comments. Do we have anyone online who wants to provide public comments? Lori, I'm not seeing anybody.
Brian, there's not any public comment signed up for today's meeting.
Great. Thank you very much. Item number 5, stakeholder reports and action items. Item 5.1, director's report. Lori.
Yes, apologies, I don't have a written report today. Just a brief summary. It hasn't been too long since we last met. We are in the middle of the mid-year assessment window. So students are taking iStation, iReady, and those aren't the only mid-year assessments. We also do the DIBELS, which is an assessment of reading fluency. We do some writing probes. All of our 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade students have taken a spelling screener that will allow us to regroup them for our literacy walk in the spring semester. So it's a really busy time. Also a really fun time. Students are working towards their first semester grades in the middle school. We will have a middle school holiday party experience on Thursday, December 19th, which is the last day of the fall semester. Teachers will have a work day on December 20th, and then we will be off until we come back in January. January 6th and 7th are teacher work days, and students return on January 8th.
So students have a sizable break.
They do. I hope they truly enjoy it. I'm sure all of us will. Thank you, Brian. Any other questions or anything that I can answer for the Governing Council?
Do you think MOI assessment will go into next week?
For sure, yes. We're not done. Yeah.
Are there any other, you mentioned the middle school event, are there any other school-wide events happening between now and winter break?
There is, and Leora maybe can tell you about that in the teacher report.
So I apologies, do not have your written report. I'm going to give you the head teacher report from my head. Well, first off, I just want to say that I think just from the staff perspective, we're all very proud of the growth that our school has made in terms of, you know, students reading that proficiency mark. And we are also in the middle of year testing. But we do have a celebration, we call it Learning Celebration, which we really love because it really focuses on the success of the students and the things that they're learning. And for instance, our Learning Celebration next week for my class is centered on learning paleontology. And so we'll have a celebration around that. And so K1 and 2 will celebrate the ELA things that we've been discussing. And, you know, one of the things we all love about this is that it's basically social studies that these kids are getting so early on, and it gives them such a vast, wonderful, rich vocabulary, but it also gives them a sense of being connected to the world early on, and that we all have a responsibility there. So that is what we are doing for our learning celebration. Yeah.
I will mention the teachers. We are going to have some fun also. So on the
Oh, that's great.
20th, we are going to have a Frito Pie potluck. And next week we are having secret Spirit Week, which means we have a Spirit Week theme, the adults do, but we are not telling the kids. So we're going to see if they notice anything interesting going on.
Yeah, they'll notice, and lots of our kids will say, "What's going on?" Or some of them might just go, "I think they're like, are they okay?"
That's hilarious.
Yeah.
Well,
love
you
that
know, they
idea.
keep us on our toes, so we're going to keep them on their toes for a week. See how that goes. But are there any questions or thoughts around anything?
How are you feeling?
Me?
Just
Well,
just with the semester coming to a close, are you tired, excited?
both and both. It's, you know, it's a hectic time of year, but I feel really proud of how hard my students have worked, and we've made some really good growth. Lori and I were just looking at my data, and the kids who've really struggled have started to close those gaps really well. So we're excited. And I'm excited because the student teachers I've been mentoring through UNM, they're done with their semester, and we have one who will be back full time next term. So that's exciting. So I feel good. I feel dizzy, but I feel good.
Good. I'm glad to hear it.
Thank you.
Are there any questions for Lori about the director's report or Leora's teacher report? All right. Item 5.3 Family Council Report.
Ryan, we have no family council report and no student council report.
Okay, thank you. Moving on to item number 6, Finance.
Before you move on, Lori, do we have anybody who is identified for parent council or family council?
Erin, honestly, not that I'm aware of.
Okay. And I know that I talked to Kana about getting the my children, the student council to do student report, and I got the sense from her that she wasn't going to do it until next semester. So hopefully that happens.
I have given her the information a couple times this fall, and extended that invitation, and I have encouraged her to prep a student who can join us in any number of ways. And it doesn't have to be your students, Erin. Student Council has a number of members, but if it is students, that would also be wonderful. So yeah, I think
because I think they're doing another fundraiser.
They are Wintergrams,
and it would be really nice for them to have a leadership experience to present, right? And they could take turns doing it, but
yeah.
I would highly encourage everybody flanking on the other side as well.
Great.
All right. Item number 6, Finance Committee. Item 6.1, discussion item summary from previous Finance Committee meeting. Elizabeth.
Hi.
Hi.
So I just sent, oh, Jen, she approved it. Look at that. Let me go find. Oh, come on. Sorry, I'm having a hard time seeing what I'm looking at. Let's try this one. Okay, so I want to share my screen so I can show you. Once I make, there we go. I'm trying to make it a little bit bigger so it's easier to read. So I am presenting the financial statements for October, and this is the statement of financial position. And this first column is operational, and then you'll see a lot of these, the 20,000s are negative, and that's because we spent the money and we have to request reimbursement. And for a lot of these, we have requested it, and you'll see in the November that the money has come in. But there's kind of a time lag. So, and then if you go to the end, you can see that our total balance is $1,092,302. And if you go back to the first page, you can see that $647,992 of that is in operational. And I always like to put in Mary's caveat that we should look at this as having a lot of money to spend because we do need to make sure we have enough to cover the summer payroll, but we are in a good place, I think. Are there any questions about the statement of financial position?
I think at this point, Mary's caveat is now your caveat as well.
Yes. But she's still doing well. We'll see what happens this year. If I have not tried to do the summer encumbrance for the summer payroll yet, so that seems like a Herculean task, but I will need to learn it eventually. All right, next up is the statement of revenue, expenditures, and changes in fund balance. And this basically shows you our revenue sources. This big one is the SEG, the State Equalization Guarantee, and that's based on our student population, our SPED numbers, and a few other things. And that's where most of our money comes from. In addition to a lot of these 20,000s are from grants that Lori has written because she's an amazing grant writer. And then you can also see where our expenditures are going. And there's a few pages of this. Are there any questions on the statement of revenue, expenditures, and changes in fund balance? Alrighty, and then next up, of course, my favorite, the disbursements. And I did try to put comments in for what everything is, so let me know if you have any questions. And I apologize for those that are on the phone because you can't see what I'm talking about. Sorry, I went through that a little fast. Are there any questions on any of the disbursements?
For the disbursements, Karina Incorporated, it just says organizational platform software. What is that?
Brian, one of our strategic plan goals or objectives is to build our operational standard procedures. Karina is a software tool that we can customize to do that.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Do you mean our draft strategic plan?
Oh, yes. That is exactly what I mean.
Are there any questions for Elizabeth on what she has presented thus far?
No.
Okay.
And then the last part of the financial statements and cash disbursements is the budget to actual expenditures. And this is where you can see all of the details of what we're doing. And what Mary and I look for when we're reviewing this is we're looking for any functions, which are these rows that are bolded, where the available is negative. And you will see a few in here. If I can find them, there aren't actually that many, But most of these, like this one right here, you'll see in 2300, and then there's another negative in 2500. That we already did a bar to fix, and it has been fixed in the November. You'll see that in the November financials that has been fixed. So I think there's only one, and that is this one right here for the food service. And this basically, when I did the purchase order for the contract, I did it for what we expect to spend, and that's less than they've actually given us a budget approval for. But they have always this is actually for claims going to the feds, and they've always reimbursed us. So I don't expect that to be a problem, but that's a negative that we have not fixed. But everything else we have done through bars that you guys have already approved, and I think they pretty much all came through in the November financials, and if not, they'll come through in the December. Are there any questions on the budget to actual expenditures? Fabulous. Well, if there's no questions, then we respectfully request that you approve the financial statements and cash disbursements for the month of October.
Thank you very much. That is item 6.2, recommendation to approve financial statements and cash disbursements for the month ending October 31st, 2024. Is there a motion?
This is Erin. I make a motion to approve the financial statements and cash disbursements for October 2024.
This is Rainey. I second.
Thank you very much. Roll call vote. This is Brian. I approve.
This is Erin. I approve.
This is Rainey. I approve.
This is Monique and I approve.
Thank you very much. Motion passes. Item 6.3 is a recommendation to approve bar FY 25-17.
And this bar is for a farm to school grant that our garden teacher, Nisa Patterson, got. And it took a long time for them to give us a budget approval last spring. And so what we were actually able to plan and accomplish in the time allowed had changed. And we just recently got approval for an amended work plan. And so this bar basically allows us to change to what's in the amended plan of work and the amended memorandum of understanding. So are there any questions on this bar?
So this is Erin. I will make a motion to approve whatever this bar number is.
17.
This
For the
is,
24.
this is Rainey. I second.
Roll call vote. This is Brian. I approve.
This is Erin. I approve.
This is Rainey. I approve.
This is Monique and I approve.
Thank you very much. Motion passes.
And one last thing, Brian, I'm not going to go over it, but I did upload 2 different documents for where we are with our request for reimbursement. So if you guys want to look at it, or if you have any questions on those documents, I just wanted to give you an update on where we're at, and it is current as of yesterday. So Mary did put in a couple requests yesterday. So
Awesome. And as Elizabeth mentioned, those are available on the websites. Thank you very much. Item 6.4, the next Finance Committee meeting will be January 6th, 2025. Item 7, Policy Committee. Item 7.1, no summary from previous Policy Committee meeting. Item 7.2, next Policy Committee meeting to be determined. Item number 8, Academic Excellence Committee.
One second, Brian, sorry.
Yep.
Can we schedule a meeting? I know we talked about it last time for the policy and we were gonna email. I don't think I received anything on that.
You didn't, Monique. That was me. I dropped the ball. I apologize.
No worries, even if we have to push it way out, like end of January, maybe, so we have plenty of time.
Erin, you're on this call and we were going to try and figure out a time when you and I and Monique could meet on the policy committee. Is there a time that would work for you better than others?
No, my life, I think after this weekend, I settled down a little bit, so that's good. I always prefer middle of the day because I do kid stuff at night, but I can make something at work.
Monique, I'm guessing middle of the day is hard for you. Is that true?
I can make a 12 noon, 12, anywhere between 12 and 1, pretty much any day of the week work.
Okay. So a 12 o'clock meeting in January,
I mean,
pretty,
currently, Lori, you're not competing with anything. Pick a day.
yeah. Let's do do you guys want to do Tuesday the 14th? Is that good?
Sorry, 14, 15, and 16, I'm at an all-day conference. Those are the only days that I'm not in my normal schedule.
How about the 13th?
What day was it again? Sorry.
Monday, January 13th.
Yes.
Works for me.
Great.
Yeah, that,
With the calendar invite,
okay,
and I'll send a Zoom link.
perfect.
Awesome. Thank you.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you very much. So next policy committee meeting will be Monday, January 13th. Item number 8, Academic Excellence Committee. Item 8.1, summary from Academic Excellence Committee meeting on December 10th, 2024, which was earlier this week. This was a meeting just to put the finishing touches on the draft strategic plan, looking at feedback from the staff survey, and really just using the time to go through, make some edits, change some formatting. The four of us, myself, Lori, Kana, and Samantha, our consultant, were all part of the meeting. But it just felt really good to get to a point in this process where it was less about content and more about just making sure that everything looks nice and is consistent to present the draft at this particular meeting for your consideration for approval. So, which brings us to item 8.2, a recommendation to approve the Mount Mahogany Community Schools Strategic Plan 2025 to 2030. During that meeting on Tuesday, Lori sent an email out to governing council members for a final round of feedback. I personally did not receive any emails. Lori, did you receive anything?
Yes, you did, Brian. It was a text.
I said email. And I certainly did not forget about your texts, which we can now come to, Aaron. Let me pull it up.
I did not receive feedback.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Aaron, how would you like me to do this? Do you want me to go through the question/feedback that you provided to me? Is that easiest for you?
Yeah, you can do that. I do. I was hoping actually to read it again today, and my day got away from me. The first thing I'd actually like to just talk about, which has no feedback in terms of I don't like it or I want to critique it, is just after I sent you the text, then I started thinking about the very first part of the strategic plan where you're allocating, and I don't have it in front of me, so I may be misspeaking. You're allocating the points.
For academic achievement for the first objective, yes.
Yes, and so I was just curious, like how that actually gets implemented. Is it based on that's the end result once you get the data, is then we're ranking ourselves against that rubric?
Lori, do you want to take that one or do you want me to take that one?
I'll take a stab at it and then you clean up whatever I miss. So, Aaron, the academic index scores are based on how students do on the state summative tests in ELA and math that they take in the spring. So the timeline looks something like April, the students take those tests, and then we get that data back, in a good year in July and August, in a bad year, maybe somewhat later than that. Once we get the data back from the state, we're able to say, okay, this student scored nearing proficiency, this student scored proficient, assign a numerical value to that score, and then generate the academic index score overall. So there is, a 4-month time frame in between, probably like when the student would take the test and when we would have the academic index score.
So each kid would get assigned a score, and then there would be a collective score for the class?
each each student already gets a score, right? They already get their test results either fall into one of four performance categories: novice, nearing
Right.
proficiency, proficient, or advanced. So we're basically assigning a number to those proficiency categories and then aggregating it for the whole school, like all the
School.
students third,
Uh-huh.
eighth grade who took the ELA test, all the students third through eighth grade who took the math test.
As well as for the grade, or no?
In the strategic plan, we're not generating a like, here's the fifth grade score.
Uh-huh.
I think the reason for that is that it doesn't give you that much helpful information because we have a lot of variance between grade levels from time to time. So like big picture in the strategic plan, at least my opinion would be we would want to focus on the whole school's progress and not necessarily each grade levels.
Okay. And then as a GC, we would be reviewing that sometime between October and December.
That sounds about right. You know,
Okay.
again, because we're using a state test, we're not going to have 100% certainty on when the state's
Right.
going to release that information.
Right.
But it shouldn't take too much time to produce the information once we get the data.
Okay. So I think that then, Brian, that kind of ties to my other question that it may not actually even be relevant right now, but one of the things that did kind of percolate when I was reading this is, so we do this, but then what are the touchstones for the academic excellence and GC, and potentially in communicating to the community about like what we're doing with the data, right? Like, oh, we see struggle in, I don't know, third grade math, and so we've adjusted X, or we're concerned about the fact that our, you know, overall student score went down, or whatever it is. Was there discussion about that that touchstone? Like how GC then uses it to kind of continue to push the school forward?
Well, as a governing council member, I would say that would be the next body of work once we have the strategic plan adopted and in place, and the school under Lori's direction understands what the goals are, where we would need to have a conversation as a governing council about what the expectation is for how Lori's going to report to us on the progress being made toward the 5 objectives. We have to have a conversation as a governing council about potentially aligning the director's evaluation, the extent that we want to do that to the strategic plan. But I would say that the work that the Academic Excellence Committee has done has been on developing the draft strategic plan in alignment with the school's mission, vision, core values, and all of the stakeholder feedback that we received.
Can I chime in, Brian?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
And Aaron, I think I could see that developing two ways. One way might be the GC telling the director, hey, in October or November of each year, we would like your like final report on the previous year's progress towards the strategic plan goals. The other might
Right.
be, let's have more of a continuous data examination, right? So reporting out periodically, or the academic excellence committee focusing on, okay, this time, you know, this month we're going to focus on goal 1, this month we're going to focus on goal 2, and reporting it out that way at monthly meetings. I could see the benefits and the drawbacks of either. So,
And just how, even though it's not our day-to-day responsibility, but that it gets drilled down. And I start thinking about the head teacher being able to come in and saying, you know, for it not to be a punishment component, but like I'm noticing a trend, right? I need X, whatever that may be from GC, right? Money, a grant, whatever it is, right? But yeah, I think you're right, Brian, in terms of like that's just the next step in terms of like how ultimately you implement and then hold ourselves accountable, because it is in our strategic plan that we are going to hold ourselves accountable to it, right?
Exactly. And Lori, I appreciate the elaboration.
Mm.
I mean, I would say obviously what resonates with me is the second approach, because as an APS employee, that's the direction that the APS board has taken with the goals in the district's strategic plan.
Mhm.
And I guess an additional benefit of that approach is that as a governing council, you as the director, just us cumulatively as a school, we're not waiting until that end of year. And if there's something that needs to be addressed in the interim, we can have a conversation about that. And then you as the director can take steps to adjust if necessary under your direction before the goal is evaluated for the year.
Right. Oh, what fun. We just created more work for ourselves. So
And richer
then I guess,
discussions.
huh?
I said, and richer discussions, at the
Oh, for
governing council,
sure.
which
I'm
is a good.
excited for that, actually. Yeah. I mean, I think ultimately, I'm biased probably, but I think we just have such a good group and there's such richness happening at Mount Mahogany that potentially it also creates opportunity to begin highlighting the uniqueness of the school, right?
Well, there's
So,
that, and the term that I go back to in the blurb that I wrote for the draft strategic plan is North Star, where the conversations that we engage in, now we're going to have this document and be able to have this conversation about, whether it's a budget item or whatever, we can say, oh, well, that aligns to objective number X.
right. Yeah. Very excited. Also, okay, so then the other feedback I gave Brian is when I read the document, I kept getting hung up on the section that pertained to, I think it's culture, right, Brian?
Mm.
When I read the question as to the energy of the school, I thought, and probably had PTSD. What the hell does that mean? Like, what are we trying to measure here? Is it that I think you use welcoming later. Is that it's a welcoming environment? Like, what are we actually trying to measure? That statement seemed really ambiguous to me, um, and so I recommended to Brian that gets drilled down more specifically in terms of quantitatively, like what it is you're trying to measure there, unless it's an open-ended question and you're letting people kind of give you a paragraph as to what that means. And what was the other
Brian,
one, Brian?
what page is that on?
I'm looking for it now. Aaron, is that objective 3, school community?
Page
I think so.
14 is the actual welcoming question itself.
MMCS will continue to develop and sustain its positive and inclusive school community by fostering a welcoming environment for students, staff, and family. And there would be 3 metrics that we would be interested in measuring: 1 for students, 1 for staff, and 1 for families.
So that's the student question.
Is it above that one?
Oh,
No,
so the percentage
yeah.
of students at Mount Mahogany Community School who respond favorably to the following question will increase 3 percentage points annually. How positive or negative is the energy of the school? That's an existing survey question.
Meaning existing in what? In an existing question in what?
Is that Panorama?
I am looking that up right now.
Yeah.
So, Aaron, what we tried to do was look at surveys that we already have to ask people to take. Like, so in the last question on page 17, at least 95% of the families will respond agree or strongly agree to the statement the school is welcoming to families as measured by the annual quality of education and family engagement survey or its equivalent. That's the state already requires us to give that survey. So that's why we used that.
That's for welcoming. Is there an energy
Yes.
question?
Yep. So this is it's called Panorama. The state chose the questions. We give it to students 3rd through 8th grade, fall and spring. And the question is, how positive or negative is the energy of the school?
So it's student
Sure.
perception.
Yes, this is a student question, yeah.
Well,
And so
and I
we have
have
historical data
I
for,
have no argument for that then.
I mean, you could still
I-
argue with it. You
It's
know.
not going to get me anywhere. I understand why we would use that question. I'm just like, oh my gosh, energy of what?
Uh-huh.
Anyways, okay. And so then I had a similar reaction to the I think it had to do with discipline. And again, my little brain is like, what are we asking in it? Brian, if you can pull my text up. Oh yeah, something about the rules. I said all rules, disciplinary rules, implementation of rules. Like how are we defining, I think, fairness of rules? Which might just be my lawyer brain being like, what are we doing here? But is that also a question in the panorama?
Yeah, that's where that came from.
Okay. Well, I have nothing to stand my argument on other than I don't like the question.
Which
I mean,
question, Lori, which question is it
how
specifically?
fair or unfair are the rules for students at the school?
What page is that, Lori?
Page 16.
Thank you.
Yep. Page 16 of the document, it's page 18 PDF.
Right, because there's a difference. Like, are my rules fair? Yes. Do I implement them fairly? No, I do not. Like,
Right. So like the other
but
question, Aaron, it's
I
about
know.
student perception.
Yeah, but I will say student perception to lead you to what, right? But again, I have no argument to stand on because if that's what the state or they're using and that's what we're collecting data points on to begin with, that's where we can start. But I challenge like, but what are you trying to get out of it? And are you getting the information you need in order to actually create an environment that you want to create? But the rules are fair, but we don't implement our disciplinary policy fairly. Those are two different realities, right? And the information you're collecting from students and families aren't going to necessarily feed that information to you based on that question.
Well, but also,
go ahead, Brian.
I was just going to say for this particular page, just like for the other parts of objective number 3, it's important to keep in mind that it's not a single data point. There's a student perspective, a staff perspective, and a family perspective. So when we, as an academic excellence committee, as a GC, just as a team, as we have a conversation about implementation, it's really important to keep in mind that we're looking at multiple data points. And what I like about objective number 3 is that for each component of objective number 3, there's the student perspective, the staff perspective, and family perspective. So it's less about, go ahead.
I was going to say, but then where are you collecting? Is there going to be different surveys that we develop to collect that information from staff and from families?
There are only a few questions that have been incorporated into the draft strategic plan that will need to be developed and incorporated into a new survey instrument. Like Lori mentioned, the goal was to incorporate measures that are already in place.
Right.
And in this case, for objective number 3, surveys that are already in place.
And so we already have a staff and family survey. I think we have a family one, right? That asks that exact question?
For the way that you can tell whether the question already exists is whether the baseline is to be determined. For that same page, for the fair environment for the staff, that survey question currently doesn't exist. So there will need to be a new staff survey that will need to be implemented. And it's the percentage of staff who respond favorably to the school's survey question about the school's approach to discipline and the extent to which it helps students improve positive learning behaviors. That data currently does not exist. So there isn't a baseline currently. So there would need to be a conversation about, well, how are we going to word that particular question when that is shared with staff members?
And what's the survey for family, Lori?
It's called the Quality of Education Survey.
And is that on a scale of 0 to 5? I'm just trying to remind myself what we do. Is that
Yeah,
from 0 to 5?
it's a strongly agree to strongly disagree type of
And
survey, the Likert
is there,
scale.
yeah, and then is there an opportunity for a narrative? Can't,
Yeah. Well,
yeah.
actually, technically, the way the state has it set up, there isn't, but I modified it to put like comment boxes in the survey.
Okay.
So, and I do think that from the student perspective, they probably won't stop and think. If the question is, how fair or unfair are the rules at this school? They probably, if they feel like the implementation is going poorly, they will probably say unfair without thinking, oh, but the rules are fair. It's just the implementation that isn't fair. Some kids maybe, yes, but a lot, it's more of like a temperature check. Like, no, I'm mad about how the rules are going versus, no, I guess I think that's fair.
Mm-hmm.
I
think those were, oh, sorry, Lori, go ahead.
Well, I think also if we start implementing the strategic plan and find out that we have chosen a terrible measure, we can always change it.
Right. Right. Okay, I think that was all my feedback. I'm very excited. Thank goodness this has come to fruition. Thank you, Brian and Lori and everybody that helped.
Yep. So that would include Kana and Sam.
Sam, yeah.
So before I entertain a motion, just for discussion, so this document, it was created using a platform called Canva. And the Academic Excellence Committee, we all have access to it. And Lori, just going into it right now with the formatting changes that Sam has been working on the cover page, for example, the school's website, it now bleeds onto a second line. So is there concern among GC members about voting on and potentially adopting this evening? And then I have a meeting scheduled with Sam tomorrow where just giving her, I want to make sure this also looks nice. So I just want to I just want to put that out there where tomorrow when I meet with her, I want to be able to tell her, oh, can you put that onto one line? Are folks comfortable with that? Are there any concerns?
If it's
I
only
don't have any,
aesthetic, I don't have any issue.
yeah, same here. And
Yeah.
I wanted to ask Rainey and Monique if they had any other questions or feedback on the content before we jump to the formatting.
I don't. I gave a decent amount of feedback the first time around, and this time I skimmed it or read it a little less heavy, and I still don't have any further feedback.
Thank you.
Yeah, I had a question, I guess, about I know that we're constantly striving for progress as stated in the goals of, it will increase 3 percentage points annually, for example. I think that's helpful, especially when we have a baseline of like 30% or something. But what if we get to 90% and that's actually a good place to be, or 100%? Would there be could it be like a 3% annually and or goal of proficient, which might be defined as 85% or something like a B plus, right? I don't know if defining that versus like we always have to go 3 percentage points higher, even if we're at 90.
So Lori, I'm interested in your response to this as well, because I mean, you and I, our intersection with this work, it's pretty unique in terms of like our interests in school accountability, for example.
Yeah.
The way that I would respond to that is anytime any sort of body is coming up with goals, the trick is finding that balance between what's attainable and what's ambitious at the same time. And this goal conversation, it came up slightly when we co-presented to staff a few weeks ago. And I would say my response to that comment, Monique, would be that we want to make this as easy on stakeholders, all stakeholders, whether it's, school employees, GC members, families. We want to make it as easy as possible to be able to talk about the goals and where they came from. And that's where that equal increment came from, keeping in mind where our baseline is. I certainly do not have, I mean, I would be thrilled if the school far exceeded these goals or met long-term goals sooner than expected, or got to a point where we're at 85% or 90% proficient. But where we landed, and based on where the school currently is, and using a method that's easy to explain and easy for stakeholders to understand, and also that balance of attainable versus ambitious, I think we're in a good place. Lori, is there anything that you want to add?
Just that I hope that will be a problem for strategic plan 2030 to 2035.
Duly noted. Thank you.
Does that answer your question, Monique?
Yes, but my what ifs similar to Erin, I'm like, well, I'm a therapist, so perfectionism is a very, I have to call it out on myself as well when we get too high, but thanks for explaining your process. It's helpful to me.
Yep, absolutely.
Can I add one thing too? I think just from my perspective as a school leader, I think it's really important that like this doesn't engender some of that fear-based feeling. Like teachers get a little queasy with this idea of like 100% proficiency, because we live in the world of the students that are in our classroom, and we see that they have many strengths and many challenges. And so it seems, we want to make sure that we're honoring every student's potential to take their learning as much as they possibly can, and also honoring where students are, for some kids, where there's a long way for them to go just to get to proficient. So I don't want anyone to get freaked out. I want everyone to feel excited and energized.
And that's the beauty of using the points method, the index method for objective number one, as opposed to the more traditional approach of proficient versus not proficient.
And if I can just note, I had a conversation with Joseph at APS, and he really loved our academic index, part of our strategic plan that we incorporated into our charter renewal, and he is already discussing it with other schools as a possibility. So good job, team.
Yep.
Good job, team.
Other questions, comments before I entertain a motion?
Great job. I think I haven't been here very long, but the massive undertaking of this, you can see the beauty that it's evolving into, and a good job. I just want to say good job. Thank you.
Thank you, Monique. Thank you.
Well, with that, I make a motion to approve the strategic plan for Mount Mahogany Community School for 2025 through 2030. Is that right? Oh God, I can't believe it's 2030.
This is Rainey, I second.
Thank you. Roll call vote. This is Brian, I approve.
This is Aaron, I approve.
This is Rainey, I approve.
This is Monique, and I approve.
Motion passes.
I mean, I literally am almost dropping tears.
I've shared it multiple times. I've shared this multiple times, within this group, with the staff, when I had the privilege of co-presenting to them. It's been a journey over the past year, but it's been so worthwhile. And the conversations on the committee and all the feedback and just all the steps along the way, it's so exciting and just rewarding to have reached this point.
It is. And I am going to just turn to Lori and be like, Lori, I just want you to take a breather, because the other thing that I was reflective about is like, the universe unfolds as it needs to unfold, right? And so my little personality is like, do it. And we're like, and I just started as a director, and I don't think people are really gonna like bite into this yet, Erin. I really gotta get some buy-in to COVID, to budget cuts, to budget hiccups. I'm like, oh, we were supposed to wait until all of that got flushed out, Lori. So
I was
it's
just,
huge.
it's incredible. I was just thinking, like, Brian was like, it's such a long journey. And I'm like,
You
looking
have no
at
idea,
Erin
Brian.
thinking like, when is the first time we said the word strategic plan to each other?
Yeah.
It was definitely over 5 years ago.
Yes, it was. Now I gotta like text James and be like, dude, guess what just happened?
But I agree. Like, I couldn't imagine being happier with the way it turned out. And like
No.
and
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 to
and
like,
the good feeling that it gives us a great plan to work forward from.
and the humility to know what you didn't know, right? When you first took the job, that you had to gain
And,
the experience and the trust
and
and build the relationships in order to be able to design, right? It's huge.
yeah. So, all right, huge celebration.
Yay. Where is our crowd? I don't know. No, just saying.
Item 8.3, the next Academic Excellence Committee meeting is to be determined.
Well
Item-
earned, Brian. Well earned.
Yeah,
Not next week.
like I said, I'm meeting with Sam tomorrow, but in terms of a full committee meeting, January.
Yeah.
Item number 9, Council Development Committee. Item 9.1, review status of board member training hours and training opportunities. I haven't seen an email lately from PED in terms of status, but this is, of course, just a good reminder for folks to be thinking about their training hours, especially for the new members because of the increased requirement in terms of the number of hours. Is anyone
And if you have time during Christmas break, just do your little studying.
or did anyone, the conference was this week, right, Lori, the PCS PCS?
Yeah, I was at the conference today. And it's also tomorrow, although I'll be here on campus tomorrow. But I actually sat into some of the governing council sessions just out of interest, and they were pretty good. But I know if you're a new member, like Rainey and Monique, you have to do it through the Canvas training through the state. So, but yeah, just let me know how I can support you guys in getting that done.
Item 9.2, review recruitment of board members / candidates for governing council.
We need people.
I did meet with Rios Fernandez, who's a graduate, and gave him a tour of campus. He got to talk to some of his former teachers. I learned that his mom was driving around with David Rubin and they saw the property, and that's why Mountain Mahogany is where it's at. So that was amazing. And I encouraged him to join the board, but I did not extend a formal invitation because I think that should come from a governing council member, should the governing council wish to formally invite him.
Well, I can take that on as my own action item. I can send an email and I will see him at a meeting a week from tomorrow.
Awesome.
Yes, it's very exciting. Item number 10, Director Support Committee. Item 10.1, nothing to report. Item number 11, Audit Committee. Item 11.1, nothing to report.
Before you leave those, Brian, Lori, I reached out to Violette's parents and too much on their plate. But if there's other parents that I don't know that you think would be good, I'd be more than willing to reach out. I just don't know any of the middle school parents or anybody. I mean, honestly, I just know people in 5th grade, if I'm honest.
Hi, Monique. People in 5th grade.
Correct.
I do have at least one potential middle school prospect, Erin, so I can share that with you offline. I've already made a note.
Okay, cool.
We have reached the end of our agenda. Item number 12, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
This is Erin. I make a motion to adjourn.
This is Rainy, I second.
Roll call vote. This is Brian, I approve.
This is Erin. I approve.
This is Rainy, I
This is Monique, and I approve.
Motion passes and we adjourn at 6:28 p.m. Thank you, everyone.
Nice.